Hey everybody, I am back, and I'm back just briefly. I should be working, but I had to get this off my chest, and I don't really have a blog anymore, and it's too long for a social media post. So, hi, how are ya? I'm hanging in there. Life has been crazy, and I'm just under 3 weeks away from having to hand in the dissertation, and I know I talk about it nonstop, but it really is like all I'm doing at this point, and I really should be working on it right now. I may ask for a week's extension on that, but I do still have high hopes that I can get it finished by the actual deadline. I certainly won't if I keep making episodes out of the blue, though. So this is a one and done, and I hope to be back with you at the end of this month. More on that at the very end. We actually had a power outage at the house today that made it so I couldn't get to my dissertation work because it's the modern day and everything's in the cloud. So I spent some time instead watching Channel 4's Game of Wool, and I have opinions. I have been eagerly looking forward to the show. You know what? I'm just gonna do this, and so I'm gonna leave that in. Nothing's getting edited out, and you're gonna get a taste of what it's like when I actually record without editing. I've been eagerly looking forward to the show. Some of you may know that I did try to apply, and I got some early interest from the producers, but then they found out that I don't have a work permit for the UK, so that kind of killed that. It is lovely to think that knitting and crochet are featuring in a format that has been so popular over the last decade or so. It's my hope that the Game of Wool does for knitting what the Great British Baking Show has done for baking, especially in getting younger people more actively interested in the craft. And I know there's a lot of us out there who are like, oh, younger people are interested in the craft. Yeah, not as openly as at other periods of time. And those of you who, like myself, lived through the 2000s resurgence with the Stitch and Bitch books, you know what I mean. Like all of a sudden, young people were like, we're going to knit. That's what I'm hoping that we see as a result of this show. And I do suspect that that might happen with Game of Wool. And so I'm very excited about that. And I do hope that that is the case. So, yeah, I sat down today and I watched the first episode. I will say I was pleased to see a diverse selection of knitters included with the show from different backgrounds, different ages, and different ability levels. I was glad that there wasn't just one token man, that there were several men involved. Knitting truly is for everyone. Personally, I'm really excited to see what the fashion student does in her time there. Some of you may know that I have a child in fashion school right now, and I'm totally obsessed with, I was able to go to one of the shows last year and see what these kids were literally just learning how to knit and crochet, the things that they came up with. And so I'm really sort of like watching that contestant. But yeah. And I want to say that I understand that in the world of reality television, reality belongs in scare quotes. Yeah. It's been known for ages now that often footage is recut to reflect a story flow that's chosen by a director or an editor rather than reflecting the reality of the moment. And already there have been people involved with the show offering context for what actually happened during the first episode. And I know viewers in the UK definitely have a wide range of opinions about this first episode. And I would like to share a few thoughts about episode 1. There are spoilers, I would say, but this is a knitting show, a reality knitting show. So I think that the world will keep revolving if you listen to this review before you've had a chance to see it. If you don't agree, you can come back and listen another time. First, Fair Isle's not traditionally viewed as a storytelling device. The traditional OXO patterns and Puri patterns were designed to be decorative and quick to knit. Fair Isle was knit to, clothe your family members, but mainly as a cottage industry. It needed to be knit quickly, precisely, without waste. The story of Fair Isle is found in the lives of the knitters, why they knit Fair Isle items and in what sort of economic and market conditions, how they were treated as producers, not how they got the wool, which is more complicated than you might think. Not in the patterns themselves. Secondly, Peerie is an adjective. The small patterns used in Fair Isle knitting are Peerie patterns. They're not Peeries. I could be wrong about that. I've been going to Shetland for a long time now, though, and I have never once heard them referred to as Peeries. It's always Peerie patterns. And while I'm being pedantic, the Shetlands should be called Shetland or the Shetland Islands. But that's like really, I don't know. It annoys the people who live there. And it's one of those things where if you don't live there, then I think I'm just throwing it out there because I know it annoys people who live in Shetland. Third, the show fell into the common mistake of referring to any form of stranded colorwork as Fair Isle knitting. This dilutes the meaning of the term. Fair Isle knitting is a form of stranded knitting that is mostly knit in the round and almost always uses no more than 2 colors in a row. It generally features abstract, symmetrical, geometric patterns that cover the garment vertically, horizontally, or on the diagonal. And those patterns are usually knit in a way so that you don't have long strands of yarn going across the back. Because again, we're trying to not waste yarn. So I don't know if you could hear that I sort of spoke in italics in a few spots. And you might hear that and think like, oh, there's wiggle room in the definition. That would probably be a misunderstanding. Rarely flowers and stars are pretty common. Hearts, those are pretty common. But things like anchors, sometimes featured, they're not heavily featured. These sort of things, they've been worked into patterns, but typically in ways that match all the other criteria that make something Fair Isle. Some areas of Shetland knit back and forth. Some knit in the round, and some will knit in, if they have to do like the upper part of a jumper, like where you're, once you get to the armholes, they'll use a technique called break and eke, where they knit across the row and then they break their yarn and then they rejoin it back at the start of the row and then knit across the row. So they're like always knitting in the same direction, but they're also always knitting. They're not purling back. So again, there are examples also, I will say, where Fair Isle knitters have incorporated a third pop of color in a round, but that is very, very rare. And again, within the other criteria for the craft. The finished tank tops in the first challenge of the video, they, for the most part, were lovely. I mean, they had 12 hours to knit a tank top in bulky yarn, but animals and tools and rows of purling, that's all decidedly outside of the tradition of Fair Isle knitting. This muddied water about what constitute Fair Isle knitting works both ways. It doesn't just dilute the definition of Fair Isle and the including things in Fair Isle that don't belong there. It also overshadows other stranded colorwork techniques, things like Selbu knitting, Bohas knitting, Peruvian knitting, Cowichan knitting, and more. They all deserve to be called what they are. They all represent unique traditions within their own heritage aspects. They have their own techniques. They have their own characteristics. So yeah, it does get annoying to see a challenge put forth that it should be Fair Isle knitting and have footage from the island of Fair Isle and a bit of information, not all of it correct, and then have all of the contestants engage in general stranded colorwork with a Peerie pattern incorporated. Fourth, reflecting back to the reality aspect of reality television, I have had strong objections to the way that Steaking was portrayed in the episode. And looking at some of the social media that I saw this morning about the episode, it aired, for me, it was last night that it aired. And people were talking about it. Like when I woke up this morning, there was commentary on social media. And then, I finally got to watch it today. Steaking, or cutting your knitting, as it's spoken of in Shetland, and if you've been listening for a long time, you know a lot about Steaking now, was, if anything, shown to be an effective technique in the episode. Gordon decided he was going to steek for the armholes and the neck holes. He went through the knitting. He did it, and it did not unravel. And as Gordon himself stepped forward to explain in a post today on Facebook, it was not the reason why he did not finish his tank top in time. Watching the episode, it's clear that he had decided to incorporate a pocket, which he didn't finish and would have added additional work to the design and additional knitting time. But additionally, he has stepped forward to explain that the reason why he took longer to knit his tank top was due to his tools. Gordon prefers to knit in the round using long double-pointed needles, and that is the way that people traditionally knit Fair Isle in Shetland. However, the appropriate tools were not provided for him to knit this way. In this episode, you can actually see that he started using the circular needles that were provided. And then at a certain point, when they start cutting to him, you can see that he's using these wooden needles. I actually don't remember now if they were wooden or bamboo, but they were plant material. They weren't the gray ones that he started with. He had to make these needles himself by taking normal straight needles, cutting off the end and sort of like whittling down the ends of them, carving down the ends of them. I'm not sure how he did it before. And so because he could not find long double-pointed needles in the size he needed for the bulky yarn to use, he had to make his own. And it was these handmade needles that slowed down his progress. I was sad to see Gordon was the first knitter to be cast off the show. And I was even sadder, though, to see that his choice to cut his knitting was heavily implied to be the reason why. Because somewhere between the day of filming and the day of airing, a choice was made. Rather than using the episode as an opportunity to educate viewers about one of Britain's heritage knitting traditions that is still alive and kicking there in Shetland, and calling attention to the fact that the one technique that seems to scare so many knitters away from trying it actually works, even on bulky yarn, the show chose to create a narrative that reinforced the fear of cutting your knitting, while completely ignoring the actual cause of what slowed Gordon down. They could have very easily focused in on his choice to use handmade needles as being his downfall. They could have even spun that into a sponsorship deal with a needle maker. You know, you could have gotten Knit Pro to be sponsoring these episodes saying, don't be like Gordon, buy our quality needles. We go all the way up to whatever size. Instead, what we had was a situation where viewers could watch with their own eyes and see that cutting his knitting was an effective technique. Yet the verbal storytelling that happened during the course of the episode was completely out of line with that reality of what we were shown. It feels very odd to be calling a television show about knitting Orwellian, and yet here we are. I am of two minds about this show. I do think that the format is fun and playful. There are people out there who are picking everything apart about it. I'm not 100% against this show. Like shows like the British baking show. I think that the challenges appear to have been created in a way that get a bit of drama and a bit of silliness and a bit of like, oh no, it looks like it will be a generally positive competition show, which is something I really appreciate about these types of reality shows that we get out of the UK. But that doesn't, I think, excuse it for the poor research and editorial choices of the first episode. I said it. I feel a little better now. I don't think I'll be back to comment on the rest of the episodes. I don't think I'm going to watch any more of this until the end of the month. I really do need to get my head down and get to work. But this was something that was going to mill around in my noggin until I got it out. And this was going to be the quickest way to do that. I will say before I go, if you do not follow me on social media, you may have missed me talking about what my next chapter will be. I don't have time to get fully into that now. I do have half an episode written about that I'm hoping I can release at the end of the month. For now, if you would like to know more, I'll put a link in the show notes to sockshetland.org, or you can find out more at the Sock Shetland Instagram account. Sock in both instances is spelled S-O-K. So S-O-K Shetland, sokshetland.org. Okay, off I go. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.